Some lives are saved by strength. Others are saved by compassion. But once in a lifetime, a single act of kindness can change two broken hearts forever. On a lonely highway in the Alaskan wilderness, a grieving man watched a starving black bear drag away a helpless baby moose. He knew nature should take its course, but one heartbreaking decision changed both of their lives forever. 3 years had passed since Ethan Carter had spoken to someone for more than a few minutes. At 42 years old, the former wildlife photographer no longer recognized the man staring back at him in the mirror. Deep wrinkles had replaced his once cheerful smile, and the sparkle that had filled his blue eyes had disappeared the night his family died. His wife, Emily. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily. A drunk driver had taken them both on a snowy highway outside Anchorage. Ethan survived. Sometimes, he wished he hadn't. The guilt never left him. Every morning he woke before sunrise, expecting to hear Lily's tiny footsteps racing through the hallway, followed by Emily's gentle laughter echoing from the kitchen. Instead, there was only silence. Silence had become the loudest sound in his life. Unable to bear the memories hidden in every street and every photograph, Ethan sold almost everything he owned and moved into an old wooden cabin deep in the Alaskan wilderness. His nearest neighbor lived nearly 20 miles away. He liked it that way. The forest never asked painful questions. The mountains never reminded him to move on. They simply existed. Just like he did. Each morning, Ethan drove along the narrow forest roads, repairing fences for nearby ranchers and delivering supplies to remote cabins. The work paid little. But it gave him a reason to keep breathing. On an unusually cold autumn afternoon, dark clouds gathered over the endless spruce forest. The first snowflakes drifted quietly from the gray sky. Ethan adjusted the old red scarf wrapped around his neck. It had belonged to Lily. Even after 3 years, it still carried the faint scent of the lavender soap Emily used to wash it. He never left home without it. As his pickup truck rounded a sharp bend, something massive burst from the trees. A full-grown female moose. She was running. No. She was fleeing. Behind her thundered a large black bear, its powerful body crashing through bushes as it chased her with desperate hunger. For several terrifying seconds, Ethan watched the wild struggle unfold. The mother moose kicked furiously, protecting something behind her. Then she disappeared into the thick forest. The bear followed. Within moments, everything became quiet again. Ethan exhaled. Nature. He whispered softly. He placed the truck back into gear. Then, a faint cry. High-pitched. Weak. Barely audible beneath the wind. He froze. Another cry. This time closer. Leaving the truck idling, Ethan grabbed his flashlight and carefully stepped into the trees. The sound led him through broken branches and crushed ferns until he reached a small clearing. His heart stopped. A baby moose calf lay trembling on the frozen ground. It couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Its tiny body shook uncontrollably. One of its hind legs bent at an unnatural angle. Fresh blood stained its soft brown fur. The calf struggled to stand. It collapsed immediately. Again. And again. Its frightened eyes searched every direction. Looking. Waiting. For its mother. Ethan slowly knelt several feet away. "It's okay," he whispered. You don't have to be afraid. The calf cried again. Not loudly. Not desperately. Just enough to break what remained of Ethan's heart. He knew exactly what those cries meant. They were the same cries he had heard from his daughter the night she called for him after the crash. His chest tightened. He closed his eyes. No, he whispered to himself. Don't do this. Wildlife experts always said the same thing. Never interfere. Predators hunt. Prey survives. Or doesn't. That was nature's law. If he rescued the calf, the bear would lose its meal. If he walked away, the calf would almost certainly die. There was no perfect choice. Only a painful one. As Ethan struggled with his decision, a deep growl rolled through the trees. Slowly, the black bear emerged from the shadows. Its thick black fur was wet from melting snow. Its eyes locked onto the helpless calf. Then, onto Ethan. Neither moved. The forest itself seemed to stop breathing. The bear took one heavy step forward. The calf let out another weak cry. Ethan's hands trembled. Every instinct told him to back away. Instead, he remembered Lily. 8 years old. Crying for her father. And a father who had arrived too late. His eyes filled with tears. Not again, he whispered. Not another child. Without thinking, Ethan slammed his hand against the truck's horn. The deafening blast shattered the silence. The bear hesitated. Ethan shouted at the top of his lungs, waving his heavy emergency flare high above his head. Bright sparks exploded into the dark afternoon sky. The bear growled once more, then slowly turned and disappeared into the endless forest. For several long seconds, neither Ethan nor the tiny moose moved. Snow continued falling around them. One grieving soul. One terrified orphan. Both standing at the edge of a second chance. The frightened calf never took its eyes off Ethan. Even after the bear was gone, its tiny body continued to shake from fear and pain. Carefully, Ethan removed his thick winter jacket and wrapped it around the little animal. You've been brave enough for one day, he whispered. Let me carry the rest. The calf didn't struggle. Perhaps it was too exhausted. Or perhaps, somewhere deep inside, it sensed that the man kneeling beside it meant no harm. Ethan lifted the small moose into the back of his truck, laying it gently on a blanket before driving nearly 2 hours to the nearest wildlife veterinary clinic. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a wildlife veterinarian who had spent over 20 years treating injured animals, met him at the emergency entrance. Her face turned serious the moment she saw the calf. This little one has been through a lot, she said quietly. X-rays confirmed what Ethan feared. The calf's hind leg was fractured. Its body was dehydrated. Several deep claw wounds covered its side. It was dangerously weak. Dr. Mitchell looked at Ethan before speaking. If you hadn't arrived when you did. She paused. It wouldn't have survived another hour. For reasons Ethan couldn't explain, those words struck him harder than they should have. Another hour. That was all that separated life from death. The surgery lasted most of the evening. When Dr. Mitchell finally emerged, she smiled gently. The leg should heal. She handed Ethan several bottles of specialized wildlife milk replacer medication, and detailed feeding instructions. But recovery will take months. And one more thing. She looked directly into his eyes. Don't let it become dependent on people. It's still a wild moose. Ethan nodded. I understand. But deep inside, he already knew that would be much harder than she imagined. The first week was the hardest. The calf refused to drink. It barely moved. Every few hours Ethan sat beside it, patiently offering the bottle. Sometimes it accepted only a few mouthfuls. Sometimes none at all. Every night he slept on the wooden floor beside the calf, waking whenever it whimpered in pain. He hadn't cared for another living soul since losing his family. Now, every heartbeat inside that little body mattered to him. On the fifth night, the calf developed a fever. Its breathing became shallow. Dr. Mitchell rushed to the cabin despite the heavy snowstorm. After examining the calf, she quietly adjusted the medication. We've done everything we can. The rest, she smiled softly, is up to this little fighter. That night Ethan didn't sleep. He simply sat beside the calf, gently stroking the soft fur along its neck. For the first time in years, he prayed. Not for himself. Not for the pain to disappear. Only for one small life that had somehow become precious to him. Please. His voice cracked. Don't leave me too. Hours later, as the first sunlight slipped through the cabin windows, a tiny wet nose gently nudged his hand. Ethan opened his eyes. The calf was looking at him. Then, for the first time, it drank the entire bottle. Ethan laughed, then cried. At the same time, weeks slowly became months. The cabin no longer felt empty. Every morning the little moose waited by the bedroom door. Every afternoon it followed Ethan through the yard, awkwardly balancing on its healing leg. Every evening it curled beside the stone fireplace while Ethan quietly read old wildlife journals. One afternoon the curious calf stole Ethan's wool hat and proudly trotted around the cabin as if it had discovered the greatest treasure in Alaska. Another day it escaped into the vegetable garden and destroyed nearly every cabbage Ethan had planted. Instead of getting angry, he laughed harder than he had in years. Sometimes he caught himself talking to the calf for hours. About the weather. About photography. About Emily. About Lily. The moose never answered. It simply listened. And somehow, that was enough. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the calf grew stronger every day. Its once broken leg carried its growing weight with confidence. Its beautiful brown coat became thick and healthy. Small bumps appeared on its head, the first signs that antlers would one day grow. It was no longer the frightened baby Ethan had rescued from the snow. It was becoming exactly what nature had intended. One afternoon, Dr. Mitchell returned for another examination. The young moose walked steadily across the yard before stopping beside Ethan. The veterinarian smiled. I don't think it needs me anymore. She gently scratched behind the calf's ear. Then she looked at Ethan. But soon, it won't need you either. The words settled heavily between them. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Because they both knew that day was coming. And when it did, the hardest rescue of all would not be saving the moose. It would be finding the strength to let it go. Spring arrived quietly. Snow melted from the mountains, rivers flowed freely again, and the forest came alive with birdsong. The young moose had grown taller than Ethan's shoulders. Its long legs were powerful. Its injured hind leg left only the slightest reminder of the day they first met. Every instinct inside the animal now pointed toward the wilderness. Sometimes it stood for hours at the edge of the trees, ears twitching as distant moose called somewhere beyond the forest. Ethan knew what those calls meant. Home. One evening, he sat alone on the porch while the moose rested beside him beneath the fading sunset. Neither moved. Neither needed to. Finally, Ethan smiled through watery eyes. "I think it's time." The next morning, he loaded the truck one last time. The drive was quiet. The same highway. The same forest. The same place where everything had begun. When they reached the clearing, Ethan opened the back gate. The young moose stepped down slowly. It looked around, breathing in the scent of pine, fresh grass, and freedom. But it didn't leave. Instead, it walked back toward Ethan. Lowering its head, it gently rested its forehead against his chest. Ethan wrapped both arms around its neck. His tears soaked into its warm fur. "You were never mine," he whispered. "I was only borrowing you from the wild." The moose stayed there for another moment. Then, without fear, it turned, walked into the trees, stopped once, looked back, and disappeared into the endless forest. For a long time, Ethan simply stood there, smiling, crying, completely alone. Yet somehow, not lonely anymore. The cabin felt painfully quiet again. No curious nose waiting outside his bedroom. No muddy hoofprints across the porch. No vegetables mysteriously disappearing from the garden. Every morning, Ethan still poured an extra bucket of water before quietly remembering there was no one left to drink it. Sometimes he found himself looking toward the forest, wondering, did it find other moose? Was it safe? Did it remember him? Months passed. Summer painted the valley in deep shades of green. Life continued. Until one peaceful morning, Ethan opened his front door and froze. Lying peacefully beneath the old maple tree was a young bull moose. Healthy, strong, watching him with calm brown eyes. For a few seconds neither of them moved. Then the moose slowly stood, walked across the yard, and gently touched Ethan's shoulder with its nose. Exactly as it had done the day they said goodbye. Ethan laughed through his tears. "I knew you'd remember." From that day forward, the visits became almost routine. Sometimes once a week. Sometimes every morning. The moose never begged for food. It simply stayed nearby, watching Ethan repair fences, following him to the edge of the property, resting quietly beneath the maple tree before returning to the forest. Then, one crisp autumn sunrise, something extraordinary happened. Ethan stepped outside carrying his morning coffee. The young bull wasn't alone. Standing beside it was a beautiful female moose. Behind her, two tiny calves peeked nervously from the tall grass. For a moment, Ethan didn't dare breathe. The little family watched him carefully. The calves hid behind their mother. Then the bull took several slow steps toward Ethan. It looked back at the others, almost as if saying, "It's okay." The mother relaxed. The calves cautiously followed. One of them stumbled clumsily across the yard, curious about everything. It stopped near Ethan, sniffed the old red scarf around his neck, then gently nudged it with its tiny nose. Ethan's eyes filled instantly. That scarf had once belonged to Lily. The same scarf the rescued calf had often sniffed while growing up inside the cabin. He smiled toward the sky. "Emily. Lily. I think you'd love this." The breeze whispered softly through the trees, almost like an answer. From that morning on, the Moose family became part of Ethan's life. They arrived with the sunrise, rested peacefully in his yard, never showing fear, never showing aggression. Neighbors who once believed moose were dangerous couldn't understand what they were seeing. But Ethan did. Wild animals don't give trust easily. It must be earned. Not through food, not through force, but through patience, respect, and kindness. Years later, hikers often spoke about an old man whose cabin was visited by a family of wild moose every autumn. Some believed it was only a local legend. Others said it was impossible. Ethan never argued. He simply smiled whenever the familiar silhouettes emerged from the forest. Because he knew the truth. The greatest miracle wasn't that he had saved a baby moose. The real miracle was that a wild heart had chosen to come back. Not because it had forgotten the forest, but because, in one small cabin deep in Alaska, it had once found love. Sometimes, the greatest acts of kindness ask for nothing in return. Ethan never rescued the baby moose because he expected gratitude. He saved it because, in that heartbreaking moment, compassion mattered more than convenience. Months later, the moose returned, not as a pet, but as a free soul that chose to remember. Perhaps that's the true beauty of kindness. You don't give it to be repaid. You give it because every life, no matter how wild or different, deserves a chance to live. And sometimes, the love you freely let go finds its own way back to you when you least expect it. If you had the chance to save a wild animal knowing you'd eventually have to let it go, would you still choose to open your heart, even if goodbye was inevitable?